Yeah,
All
no,
right,
we're not.
We are through. Hello, everyone. This is Mutant Radio. We are speaking with. We haven't introduced ourselves, actually. Do you want to use real names, internet
Yeah, I'm just gonna
pseudonyms?
whatever. I'll just say it's Sean. Who gives a fuck? I don't
Yeah,
care.
I'm Casey, and we've got Robert over here, and we're speaking with Dan Barrett of Have a Nice Life. We're gonna ask. We have a bunch of questions here saved from a previous thread people wanted to ask to you about the band, The Unnatural World, and a bunch of other things. Some of these questions are more directly about the music, and there's some other more silly ones. Although I can tell you, we're not gonna ask you. Where's the food? Are the black metal records here
Yeah,
yet?
you know, I had to
And so,
inform people in the thread beforehand. When I talked to you, you mentioned, like, everyone asks you, when is the black metal records coming in the mail, and where's the food? That's, like, the most common things you apparently get.
Yes, yeah, it's one of those things. I'm sure I do this too, where you think of a joke and you're like, "That's an amazing joke," and you say that joke, and then
very well.
Yeah, well, you just don't realize that 5,000 other people have thought of that joke. But I appreciate it in any case. So yeah, let's do this. It should be fun.
all right.
Yeah.
First thing, I guess I don't know if you're aware, but people were. I hate to say upset, but people wanted. People were hoping for more. A lot of people stayed up last night. People for like the last week, everyone's waiting to see. Oh God, maybe Have a Nice Life is gonna get reviewed on Pitchfork. Oh man, and everyone was. I suppose not everyone. There's always haters.
A lot of people were disappointed. The score
People were
wasn't high
disappointed.
enough.
Everyone wanted that big fancy red circle in the B&M.
Yeah. Well, is that how that works? I actually don't know how it works. Is it
how
like
it works
if it's
is
above an 8 or something?
No, it's like there's this weird system. It sometimes is basically an 8.2. It can get a best in music. It's whatever they decide is a best in music, but also is good enough to get an 8 score. I don't know. It's a staff thing. There's a weird system they have worked out.
But
Okay.
It's strange and mysterious.
There's
But I mean, I'm just glad you got on the site at all because it gets you publicity. I mean, I think you deserve some sort of publicity for what you do. So it's nice enough that they even considered putting you on to review you.
Yeah, it's certainly weird for us since we don't really do any promotion for anything that the label puts out. I mean, our promo process more or less consists of emailing our own mailing list and then kind of asking for people that want to review it and sort of mailing out copies. So for this record, Flenser, who's the label that is co-releasing the record with us, handled the promo, and they have sort of a promo person that knows that you're supposed to email people at these various websites and kind of send them promo copies and stuff. So it's been interesting to watch the process because it's so different from the way we normally do things. So I read the review today and I thought it was a positive review, and I was like, 7.8 seems okay to me. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't really go on Pitchfork, so it's all kind of new to me. But I thought the review was very nice, and that's all you can really ask for.
Well, that's great to hear.
That's
just funny
exactly what I
because
thought.
immediately after it comes out, people start like photoshopping up images of comparing it to like Chief Keef got an 8.0, which oh god, like
well, and it's to a certain extent. I mean, the number rating thing is very bizarre because you can't. For me, at least, it gets confusing because let's say you're like, I love this record, it's a 10, and that's the perfect record because in your system that's the highest number that it goes to, and so then you're like, well, is this record I really like on par with the greatest albums of all time? And then maybe it isn't, and so then you end up sort of creating this weird system of precedence. And for me, I mean, I didn't even really look at the score. I read the review. I thought the words were very positive, and I'm happy enough that they reviewed it. And to be honest, I'm more just relieved that it's gotten very little. I honestly thought more people would hate it than hate it. So you always expect some people to dig it and some people to hate it, and that's totally natural. And that's the way things go. I really expected more hate and more backlash for the record, just because, because I realize it's a tough follow-up to try to pull off, and I get that people feel really connected to the first record, and so they have a lot of expectations. It's always a tough sort of situation to come into. And then also just because I don't know, it's just a bigger audience. I figured more people would, that just means you get more people that dislike it kind of by nature. But it's been pretty positive, so that's more than I could have hoped for, really.
Yeah, I believe someone mentioned actually just in those. Yeah, you're still, if you go and rate your music, The Unnatural World is still the highest rated release of this year of all the users of that site. So obviously there's
that's getting up there.
Yeah, as I keep saying, beating Bruce Springsteen. So I'm like, I just keep turning to my friends and saying, "Suck it, Springsteen," or whatever.
I'm a pretty big Springsteen fan, but I was not a big fan of that album.
Right here.
I just figure I have to enjoy this temporary period of my life where, what I mean? It's not going to last. I realize it's not going to last, so you just got to ride it out while it goes. Yeah, it's been very bizarre. I saw that we did iTunes this time around because of the digital distribution, which is not something we normally do, and so I saw that the record was on the front page of iTunes, sort of like under the Beatles, something about the Beatles, like 90th anniversary, whatever it is.
90th anniversary.
I just screenshotted it because my mom, of course, loves the Beatles, and so I just sent her this image, and I was like, F the Beatles, basically, because I don't like the Beatles, but it's this long thing. But it's very bizarre. I mean, to us, we really do we do almost nothing differently than we did 6 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever it was. So, for us, it just feels to us like something we do when we get together and hang out, and that we do for fun. So it's just a very bizarre process for us, but it's a gratifying one.
All right. Let's see. Let's look through some of these questions here. This question is interesting. Okay. If you could give one piece of advice to a young, impressionable child, what would it be?
How young is the child?
I don't know. That's all they put.
I assume 16.
Oh, okay. So 16 is a very different deal than we're talking like the 8-year-old, right?
Well, okay.
Right.
Well, I have my nephew here.
Oh, all right, cool.
He's 3.
Yeah,
you can give him advice.
So I can tell him to never try.
Yes.
No,
I tell him that every day, actually.
If we're doing 16-year-old, and it's an impressionable person, I think probably the best piece of advice, I don't even know if it's advice, but sort of something that I got told when I was around that age that really stuck with me was just that that no one in life has any idea what they're doing, and that everything around you is just completely made up, right? So the social structure you live in, the town you live in, how you interact with your friends, to how you make money, to no one has any idea how it works. There's nobody at the top that really has their shit together, right? Everybody is a complete asshole. And it's kind of like, for me, it was this really freeing thing where you realize that, there's nobody that gets it. And so the things around you that feel very restrictive, especially when you're young, when you're in high school, God, what a horrible time of your life, right? And you are old enough to have the desire for self-autonomy and freedom, but young enough so that you don't have it yet. So it's like the one time in your life where you're really just completely fucked. And was really comforting to me to think like, oh, I could kind of do whatever I want. Like if I want to live on the street, I could theoretically do that, right? Or I could theoretically make money playing music, or I could start my own company, I could start a band, or whatever it is. So for me, that's always kind of my go-to piece of advice, is just that you kind of realize that the things around you are sort of false at their core, and that kind of lets you do whatever you want in that place. So I don't know if that's a good piece of advice, but it's the one that There you go. All right. You'll be well on your way to becoming an associate.
Segueing from, nobody in life knows what they're doing, I think this is a good question of how devastated were you when you lost the Death Consciousness Masters?
I remember, so I was pretty devastated. I remember very specifically the moment that I realized that had happened. And then having to call Tim, I had to call Tim. And so it's like having to call someone and tell them that their mom is dead or something, and just be like...
I want to call Tim do that.
Sorry.
His mutton chops, they scare me.
Some bad news. The Death Consciousness Masters have passed away in their sleep.
I was like, no, all those songs we've been working on for like the entire time that I've known you? So it's kind of like that. I was very frustrated. I think I probably said no a lot. But I now have no less than 2 external hard drives hooked up to this computer. So there you go. Just throw that out there.
Maybe you need a new computer.
Yeah, I think I need to. I'll just kind of put them on reel-to-reel tape and then ship them to a warehouse somewhere in Nebraska or something, and kind of hope for the best that way. But yeah, that was pretty horrible.
Okay. A lot of people are asking about will we ever get to listen to the first demo, Have a Nice Life versus You, quote, the 2004 live video was so fucking great. I'd love to hear more of this stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so, yes. So the plan is that we are going to we're going to add that to the we're sort of putting together a digital archive of all the Enemies List stuff. And so we will probably send that out for free to the people who are in the sort of label subscription group. And then, we'll just kind of let it percolate to the internet and kind of be out there for free since people want to listen to it. I think one of the reasons that we've never really put it out is because, one, it's so old at this point. So it's really sounds...
It's like the All Lights Fucked on the Harry Amp drooling of Have a Nice Life.
Yeah,
it sounds... I can tell it sounds really different from what you actually were doing later on at Death Consciousness. It seems like you have a totally different style of what you guys were doing, especially with Tim on vocals. Yeah, well,
it's funny because some of those songs cross over. We would... Earth Mover in particular, we were playing live around that period with that setup, with the 2 acoustic guitars set up and stuff. So there are songs that cross over. I just think that recording in particular is pretty rough. We kind of did it all at once, and it wasn't something we recorded. We had a friend. We went to a friend's house and kind of recorded it all in one take, and it's like that kind of thing. So the songs are... I like them, but to me, I cringe when I listen to it. So it's a little hard to put it out there. But for people who want to be completists and who are just interested in that, period of time, it's cool for me to kind of put it out there and have it as an archive of all this stuff that we've done. But it's one of those things where, be careful what you wish for. Because I think we sound better on that video than we do on the recording. So who knows? We'll put it out there and people will listen to it and they'll be like, oh yeah, this is why they didn't put it out. And they'll kind of, then you'll have it. It'll be nice.
Okay. Someone wants to know, how does Enemies List work for you financially? Is it a money drain, or do you get something out of it? Especially now since the monthly dollar pay what you want sort of thing has come into play. How does that work for you?
Yeah. So Enemies List has never paid me per se. Enemies List has always been. Well, I don't know what to say always. Let's say for at least for the last 4 years or so. Enemies List has been profitable in the sense that it made back a small amount more than we put into it. Especially in the beginning, I just funded all Enemies List stuff myself with my credit card because we never had enough sort of funds in the our accounts to kind of cover bigger pressings or whatever. But it always paid me back. And then always had a little left over to kind of funnel into the next release or whatever it is. Over the years, Enemies List has bought equipment and stuff that we've used on recordings, so that's sort of come back to me as a benefit that way. When we did the subscription, the idea was that it was finally going to pay me a certain amount of money. So it was going to pay the amount it was like the equivalent to a week of my bills. So it's going to be like a week of bills, and that was going to sort of be the encouragement to get me in and shipping packages more. But I didn't end up doing that. What we ended up doing instead was this amazing friend named Air John, who was sort of needed a job and sort of down on his luck. He's around here. So we brought him in. He is completely overqualified. So he does a better job of running the day-to-day label stuff than I ever would. He's very detail-oriented. So he's been packing everybody's orders and sort of doing stock and just doing a really amazing job. So, he comes in for, 5 or 6 hours a week whenever he wants and kind of does that, and the label pays him rather than pay me. And then the sort of leftover we've been kind of rolling into, buying shirts and random pieces of stock. So, that's probably more in depth than anybody ever actually wanted to know. It's funny because I'll see, every now and then someone will mention like online that, I work full time at the label. I do work. I am self-employed, but the label's always just been a labor of love. And, if it started making a crap ton of money, then I might consider it. But I feel more comfortable kind of letting the money run the label and kind of be for the label. Because that way I don't have to feel guilty about taking anything out of it, right? It's not like someone else made this record and I profited off of it. Not that that's bad, but it's just not necessarily the relationship
We to profit, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Ayn Rand, whatever it is. But, I just don't want to have that relationship with the music. I don't want it to be my job, right? I want my job to be my job. I want the music to be the thing I'm excited about every day. So,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. But it's running well. And I mean, the people who support us and do this subscription thing, it's been such an incredible help. And we're really kind of gearing up to do a bunch of releases this year and a bunch of shirts and stuff. And we just wouldn't be able to do it without those people. So it's really, really super important to us. So, yeah, it's going well.
Okay, this has been asked before, but I think in light of all the coverage that the Unnatural World got and now the Pitchfork bump as well, are there any plans, or do you think you're going to be able to tour Have a Nice Life in the U.S. or on a larger scale than you have in the past?
Well, okay, so, and I have been asked this before, but, so I will say, what I haven't really told anybody, really, is that we are trying in a way that's probably more serious than we ever have. So we do have a group of people who have agreed to do it, who are all really amazing musicians. So part of the deal was we changed our lineup a little bit in order to decrease the amount of time we would need to practice. So we kind of picked a bunch of people that we knew that are the kinds of people where they're just kind of like, oh, how do you play it? Oh, that's how, blah, and they just kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Whereas, we've never been like that in particular, especially me. Tim is like that, but I'm not. So we have a roster of people. We have theoretically a place to practice, and we have theoretically a practice schedule. We also have kind of a deadline of trying to get stuff together for the spring. The reason that I'm hesitating is that I don't actually know that this is going to happen. We haven't had any practices yet. It's just something that both Tim and I really want to play out on some of the new material. We really want to play, we really want to get more of a chance to play the old stuff in front of people. And it's just something we both really love. It's just historically been very difficult with schedules and jobs and families and all that. So we're doing our best, and I would say there's probably like a 70% chance that it'll happen. So that's at least 50% better than it's ever been. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm aiming for spring, and we'll probably try to play like maybe 4 or 5 shows in the U.S. and try to hit all the major whatever. But I don't know that. There's no definite plans, but that's kind of the idea.
That's a good enough plan for me. I mean, you coming out to Los Angeles to play was nice enough. I mean, it's one of those things I thought like I was probably never going to see, because there's a lot of groups that always kind of stick to the Northeast or just certain parts of the country because it's sort of where they're geographically stuck in their their money situation.
Yeah, it's you're poor, so it's always like what can I just not lose any money? Right.
I am poor. I can't go to Coachella's, and that sells out instantly.
Yeah, so it's a thing. It is a reality, but we're trying to get it set, and that's partially for me. That's partially stuff that the label can pay for. The label can absorb some of those costs so that we could do stuff with the music we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. That's why we started the label. So hopefully it'll happen. We're working on it. I wish I could tell you more, but you know about as much of it as I do now. So that's where we'll leave it.
I guess Toronto might not be in those plans either, huh?
Who knows, man? Maybe. I don't know. Right now, nothing's in the plans. We really just have to get together and.
Are you going to come to Charleston, North Carolina? What about Kansas City?
Clearly, yeah. I mean, clearly we have to play Charleston. North? Is it North or South Carolina?
I think it's.
Damn it! I don't know. Wait, one of the
Carolina.
Yeah, we're doing
just
a whole
to unify them into one state.
We're doing a tour of the Carolinas.
The Have a Nice Life Carolina tour.
Yeah, Carolinas. Yeah, it'll be fine. We'll work it out.
All right. Apparently, so there's people asking about some of your favorite movies and albums and stuff, and I mentioned to them when you talked to me before, you said stuff about Tim having a ton of movies. And I don't remember you saying much about what you liked in movies, but I remember you saying Tim had a ton. So people kind of want to know what your favorites, movies or albums, and maybe Tim's favorite movies are.
Okay. I don't know what Tim would say his favorite movies are. He does. He has like a closet. If you where you walk into it and it's like, have you ever watched the Royal Tenenbaums, that Wes Anderson movie where they have that closet where there's just games inside? It's like that, but with movies. He has like a million bazillion movies. He collects Criterion Collection DVDs and stuff like that. So he is one of those guys where he has completely encyclopedic knowledge of music and movies. He could tell you pretty much anything. He's constantly referencing these, weird ass, German movies from the 40s where he's like, a donkey eats a baby and it's awesome. And I'm like, So he is that guy. So I don't even know for him. He would probably have a bunch of really interesting answers. And for me, I always say my favorite movie is Jacob's Ladder. I love that movie. I remember watching it and just having my mind blown right out the back of my head. And, I think it kind of appeals to a certain aesthetic sense that I really like. I would say like my favorite video game are the Silent Hill games, because Silent Hill is basically Jacob's Ladder, the video game. So that's kind of my thing. But books. Was it books and movies? Is that what you asked?
Albums.
It was music
favorite
and
albums
favorite
of all
albums
time.
and favorite books.
Yeah, albums and books, man. I don't even know if I could tell you. Obviously, the big bands for me are kind of Smiths and Joy Division and Sisters of Mercy and My Bloody Valentine and all these bands that kind of always
I think
come up.
that's stuff on your last FM.
Right, yeah. It's like I kind of listen to the same stuff all the time. I mean, I don't know if I could tell you favorite albums. To be honest, I really don't listen to music in that way anymore, in like a pure album sense. Mostly because, now my music listening is all weird because I listen to music at work, so it's kind of just always on, and I'm not really paying attention to it. So, but, when I was a kid, I remember Nirvana Nevermind was the first record I bought with my own money, so that's obviously always a big deal. And I think I always joke that we were on a family road trip with my dad and my grandfather and my brothers. We were going to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and so they were like, you can buy a record, you can buy a tape for the car ride there. That we had like Walkman, right? So you could listen on the Walkman. So I was like, oh, awesome. So he's like, here's $5 or whatever, whatever he gave us, and we could go in and buy from Record Express, which was this music store. And I just remember like going in and just tapes everywhere. And, and I was like this young, impressionable kid. And I was like, I can't wait. I love baseball. I can't wait to go. This is going to be so fun. And I bought Nevermind, I think, because the cover looked funny or something. And I just listened to it back to back to back to back on the car ride to this place. And I always joke that I got out of that car an angsty asshole. Like I had gotten in like this wonderful kid. And, so that's always a big deal to me. But, it's doing the favorite albums thing is hard. I love Keep It Like a Secret by Built to Spill. And there's some really great records that I kind of forget
I have the same
about.
problem. I've listened to a lot of music and I couldn't tell you exactly what a favorite is. I can tell you things I like a lot and I have memories with, but I couldn't tell you what is my favorite album of all time or something.
Yeah, I definitely think there are albums that, if I could only take like 5 records, I'd probably take, I'd have to take at least one Smith record, at least one Joy Division record, and probably be, Unknown Pleasures or whatever. I don't really have obscure taste.
Or you could just take 5 copies of Nevermind if you wanted
5
to do that.
copies of Nevermind on all different formats.
Yeah, so
An
just in
LP,
case
a
one
cassette.
breaks down, you just get the next one in there. I haven't listened to that record in forever, but I remember it having a big effect on me. And, at the same time, I was listening to like Candlebox and fucking Soul Asylum and
there's
stuff
always
like
that one record you probably can equate to being the exact moment you think you became an angsty teenager. I think at least I know I have it, but
Yeah,
I think it was Dead Kennedy's Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables or something like that.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's a good one. That'll turn you into a real snotty little whatever it is. Yeah, it's hard. I should kind of sit down and try to think of my desert album or desert island records or whatever. But I always say like my musical taste is really not complicated, and it's really not. I don't go too far away from kind of what I would probably term the sort of indie mainstream. I like heavier music. I like that kind of fuzzy, gazy approach, and I always say like Have a Nice Life is the kind of band I would listen to. That's why it sounds like that. It's just because like that's kind of what comes out when we sit down to make music. So yeah,
it sounds like Joy Division and My Bloody Valentine sort of. It's like just a good mix of what you enjoy.
Yeah, I say we like My Bloody Valentine, and we set out to rip off Sisters of Mercy, and that's what came.
That's what I was going to say. It was going to sound very gothy as well. Some Sisters of Mercy or Bauhaus in there.
Speaking of someone, oh sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Someone just asked, what was the better release? But I'll ask, what did you think of the new My Bloody Valentine release that came out last year? Did you like it? Did it live up to your expectations of
Do you want to know something horrible?
What's
I
that?
haven't listened. I have not listened to it.
Oh wow.
I haven't
Cool.
listened to it because it makes me nervous to listen to it. This is kind of like the same way that I feel like some people react this way probably to Death Consciousness, right? Where it's like they really like that record. And so we
Yeah.
came out with a new record and they're kind of like, they're like kind of like looking at it, they're like, I don't know. So I totally had that reaction, and I was just kind of like, I talked to my friend Val, whose opinion I really respect on music, and I was like, oh, how was that record? And he was like, it was good. It was My Bloody Valentine record. And I was like, that was kind of his reaction, and I was kind of like, and I haven't sought it out, and it kind of came and went, and I sort of forgot.
I almost want to tell you what you should do or shouldn't do, but I can't, because that would just ruin it. That would make it worse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna listen to it. I will listen to it. It's one of those things that's gonna happen, but I don't know if I needed another My Bloody Valentine record.
That's almost what everyone said, but then I was thinking the same thing coming into it, and then I listened to it and then came away from it sort of just being like, oh, I could actually like do another My Bloody Valentine record after that. I don't know. I mean,
they're fantastic. I mean, they're fantastic.
We did need a new tour, though. That's what we did need.
Yeah. It's I'll listen to it. I mean, they're amazing. I don't know why I doubt them, but I just, I don't know. I didn't rush out, and like get it the day it came out.
That's sort of a weird thing, and it's such a long gap of time, and people think that Have a Nice Life gap was pretty big, but I'm thinking, you've done stuff as Giles Corey and stuff the whole time, and your Giles Corey stuff isn't that much, different in terms of how you do you make your music and stuff. It's still Dan writing songs. It's just minus the whole Tim being there to add in whatever he adds into, and I don't know exactly what he adds in, but you said he adds in a lot to Have a Nice Life.
Right. Yeah. You can pretty much listen to Giles Corey and say, oh, this is Have a Nice Life without all the cool parts. So that's what Tim adds in.
I disagree. A lot of people say they like Giles Corey more than Have a Nice Life.
Yeah, a guy here said, "Dear Dan, I like Giles Corey, but I'm not fond of Have a Nice Life. Is something wrong with me?"
Yeah, yes, something's wrong with you. You have horrible taste. I think they're obviously very different. I mean, I don't know if they're very different. They feel very different to me in terms of projects and kind of how I set out to stuff. I think Giles Corey material is it's obviously sort of turned down in terms of mood and stuff even more. At least it was on that record, the first Giles Corey record. So, and I also feel a little bit more freedom to kind of play around with Giles Corey since it's only me. But, to get back to kind of your original point, I mean, to me, yeah, it certainly feels like I've been writing and recording music pretty consistently since Death Consciousness. It's just
under different names.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on how clued in people are to the label and kind of what we're doing, which I like. You can be into Have a Nice Life and not be aware of any of these other projects, and it's not like you're missing anything.
I'd say people were missing something if they didn't get when you did that Christmas EP or single, whatever you did. That was fun.
Yeah, the Married, you mean?
Yeah,
that was fun. Yeah, that was, we literally got snowed in, and it's like, oh, what do you want to do? I don't know, let's start a band and put it on the internet, which is
I was about
just...
to say, how did you get your wife in on that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I've made the joke to her many times that we should start a band together because she's completely, she's not like musical in the traditional sense. She doesn't sing or do music or anything. It's just whatever. So I always, I'm like, we should be in a band together. You'll be the cool Asian chick and I'll be the dorky white dude, and we'll sort of have the typical indie band, and maybe you can play bass and whatever. It's like it's kind of a running thing. So, we had a bunch of time when we weren't doing anything, so we just decided we were going to sort of record some Christmas songs, and I think we made like $100. We just took it and got like a fancy meal. It was pretty awesome. So I was like, it was a
Man,
good.
so
good
hot
couple
meals
nights
were
worth.
had.
You got a hot meal.
meals
Is what
were
you're
had.
saying.
Yeah, when we went out, we had a very.
That
pleasant
answers
meal.
everyone's millionth question of were there hot meals? There he is in support of hot meals. Everyone.
Yeah, well, there was, and we got we got sushi, so they're actually cold meals, but it was
Whoa.
totally fine anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, I know,
Oh,
but yeah,
man.
it was great. I mean, that's the best part of making music right now. Is that I'm like we thought of something, recorded it, put it online, and had someone listen to it in the course of 10 hours. Like was it like amazingly amazing? No.
No,
But
it's
it
fun.
was it was fun and people got
That
enjoyment out of
Baby Is
it.
Cold Outside cover is great.
Yeah, I mean yeah. That was
I bet
that
you had
I
a lot
said,
of
it was
fun
like,
making that one.
Yeah, well, I was saying that this is like the Have a Nice Life parody song because they were like put it together and it took like 5 minutes to put it together, and I'm like, clearly we are not exhibiting enough musical skill if it's this easy to kind of put this stuff together. But it was, we got enjoyment out of it for sure, and I think other people did too, and that's kind of the best part. The process from start to finish is so quick that it really lets you do a lot of fun stuff you never would have been able to do before. So yeah, it was great.
Speaking of the label, how are artists for the Enemies List discovered, or how do you discover them?
Well, there's two ways. I mean, one is like people we just kind of know already. So we released albums by people that I just already knew, like Frustrator, which was a vinyl record we put out last year, is a friend of mine, Tableau, that I grew up with. Obviously, Afterlives is my brother, Will, and then our own projects and stuff. So we kind of come into stuff. America Audio is Tim's best friend, Cody, growing up, who's completely amazing, one of the smartest dudes. So there's that, and then the rest is really just people submit stuff and I like it. That's how I found Planning for Burial. I think I heard on Bandcamp and asked if he wanted to put it out. So that's how that happened. Sleep In just
Sleep
emailed
In's
me
great.
some songs. Yeah, he's amazing, and he's just kept putting out stuff. People that we're putting out this year, like I Don't Love, and so stuff like that. The Human Fly, where we just kind of found that people either submitted or kind of just found on the internet. I mean, there's really no process to it. It is mostly just people send me stuff and I dig it. I mean, I will say that my turnaround time is like a million years to listen to songs because people send me a lot of music and I just don't have a lot of time to listen to it. So it will take me a couple months sometimes to finally hear something. But when we're into it, I just kind of send them back an email and say, "Hey, do you want to put something out sometime?" And they say, "Yeah." I mean, we have some really neat stuff coming up that we got that way.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be cool. We've got some
I
fun.
pretty much follow most anything you guys put out under Enemies List because usually I love the sound that you guys have in terms of what you go for in that aesthetic.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a thread that kind of connects all the bands, and I think it more than anything, it's just things I react to sort of immediately.
Yeah.
So it's funny because it's not deliberate, but you can hear the sort of connection points for sure.
Someone wanted to know, like, what is your favorite release off of what you've had off, released off Enemies List that's not on, that you haven't done yourself?
Well, my favorite release.
It's like asking who's your favorite child. You can't do that.
Yeah, the middle
Oh, they
one.
won't hear this. Don't worry, they don't come here.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
the older one is a dick, and the youngest one is a giant pussy. So the middle one is my favorite child. No, I don't really know. I can tell you that my favorite ones. I won't say my favorite ones, but the ones I have kind of the warmest kind of memory for are the Afterlives record, which is my brother Will's record, which I still love. I think it's such an underrated record.
I love that. I was gonna ask, when does he plan on actually making something else under Afterlives?
Oh God! I mean, he's theoretically been working on it for like a million years, and I keep bugging him about it. But he's a busy guy. He's got his own stuff going on as well. But that record, we kind of worked on it together. I quote unquote mastered it, which I don't even know what I did. I probably just turned the volume all the way up or something because I don't know anything about mastering it. It just
good enough for me.
Yeah, it just, and that was the first record that was really I wasn't, it wasn't my project. So it was really, really cool for us. And then the Planning for Burial Leaving album is still one of my favorite records. I love that record. And it was really he was one of the first people that we really didn't know him at all. He was really kind of the first outside person that kind of came into that group. And so for me, that was really fun and cool, and I love the art. And so those were probably the two that kind of immediately come to mind as kind of meaning the most to me. Obviously, I get so excited about all the records we put out because I'm so lazy that if I wasn't really into it, I wouldn't be able to put it out. I just can't. I wouldn't be able to do the work. So it's those are really fond memories for me, all those records.
Okay, here, this is not a question so much as an all caps demand. Please talk about Black Spring, Connecticut, and if it's coming to fruition.
Okay. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, huh? That is so for anybody that's listening that doesn't doesn't follow my live journal or whatever, wherever I post that crap. Black Spring, Connecticut is going to be the title of the next Giles Corey thing. And it's definitely happening. I'm definitely working on it. I am mostly songwriting now. So I have a pretty quickly growing raft of songs. I've been playing a lot of guitar, kind of working on sort of general approach and feel and stuff. So it's happening. I don't have anything recorded that I'm going to use at all, but I'm kind of getting back into it and sort of setting things up for that. I'm pretty sure it's going to have a written component, but I'm still playing around with how it's going to be structured and what it's going to actually look like. I sort of have had this idea for the written structure forever, and it is probably it's too big and too kind of grand in my head. So what will probably happen is I'll need to really kind of tone it down in order to actually get it out, because it's really easy to kind of plan and come up with this giant thing that in practice ends up being kind of just a pile of crap. So it's definitely happening. I got a really amazing illustrator to make up the cover. So I have a cover that I haven't shown anybody that is really gets at what I want it to be like. And I look at it every day and I think about it, and that's kind of where we're at. So it will definitely happen. I don't have anything to say or to show at anybody really. And my feeling is that what I'll probably do is just not post everything and just kind of put it out unannounced or something. That's kind of my plan, but who knows? That I always think I'm going to do that, and then I get excited and I just post things anyway, and I ruin it for everybody. So, but yeah, so that's where we're at. So it's definitely happening. I'm excited about it. I think it's definitely going to be different from the first record. But I think it's hopefully people will dig it. I'm excited about the songs, so hopefully other people are too.
That's good. I remember you mentioning that you were, I think in another interview for someone else, you mentioned that you were not as excited about Have a Nice Life, mainly because you said, you were worried about what people would think of it and how the reaction, having so many years behind it. But you said you felt like you were writing songs forcibly to sound like, songs for Have a Nice Life versus making them, come out naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely went through. We definitely went through that. I mean, you have to deal with. You always have to deal with that when you're sort of releasing something that has expectation behind it. Because even if you just sit down and you're like, I'm just going to let whatever come out, you always end up kind of writing things, especially in the beginning, that kind of sound like you're covering yourself. And so you just have to work through that. I mean, at least for us, we just kind of work through that as much as we can. We get rid of that stuff that doesn't really work or isn't up to our standards, and then we just write another thing, and you kind of work past the junk that's kind of built up. So, you know, I think more than anything, I wasn't excited when Have a Nice Life, when we were getting ready to put it out. I wasn't excited because I've listened to it too much. Now I've heard those songs so many times. I mean, I had even final mastered versions like 6 or 7 months before the vinyl came out. So it's just kind of like, after a certain point, you just don't want to hear it anymore. And you can't tell if you like it or not, or if it's good. It just is what it is. So, you know, that was really the issue with that. Now it's interesting seeing other people enjoy it or watching people react to it. Sort of gives me more enjoyment than actually listening to the record at this point. But that usually happens. I mean, I can only really listen to Death Consciousness now. I was so sick of it.
It's been 7 years or something like that.
Yeah, you know, I'm on this 7-year cycle or whatever. But you know, it's great that it's out. I'm really, really happy that it's out.
Oh, that's great. Everyone, I think most people are happy it's out. Most people have been waiting a long time for this, and I think it's held up really well to what it's not the same as Death Consciousness, and I didn't want it to be. I didn't want Death Consciousness 2. And I think some people did, and that's sort of where it kind of, again, you said it ends up being like, oh, it's, you know, this iconic album versus, you know, something else. It's the new MBV.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it is what it is, and I'm glad we were able to go through that process and get it out, and hopefully the next one will be a little less difficult because we can kind of feel like the field is a little more clear, you know.
Yeah. Someone's asking about Blackwing. I didn't see what the question was, but they're asking something about what you plan on doing with Blackwing, I'm guessing, which I like what you've released as Blackwing so far.
Yeah, I definitely want to get that done. I think I want to have it done this year. I haven't worked on it a whole ton just because, you know, we've had Unnatural World stuff going on, and you know, it's just kind of various things taking up my time. But it's definitely going to come out. It'll probably be digital only, and it'll, you know, that's more of a fun project for me. It's also kind of a way of clearing my palette a little bit before I get into Giles Corey recordings. You know, Blackwing is like only digital instruments. That's kind of the idea, right? And then
reminds me of what Phil Elverum did on his new album for Mount Erie, which is all garage band, I think, right?
Is it really?
I think that's what it was. There's a picture. The album cover is him with a thing of GarageBand open on a MacBook Pro, eating some snacks or something.
That's
I don't know. You follow his Twitter, so I figure you've seen the thing of him. He's like, oh, it keeps happening. It's just people posting pictures of themselves imitating the album cover for the new Mount Erie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I love that. I have to check that out. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just kind of like, since Giles Corey originally was going to be no digital instruments. Obviously, that didn't happen. But
right,
you know, they kind of creeped themselves in there a little bit. Yeah, I know. But you know, so this one is just kind of like, it's all digital, and it's kind of deliberately digital sounding.
Yeah,
and it's
kind of chill wave, right?
Yeah, well, I always say it's depressive chill wave or chill gaze or whatever, you know, whatever bullshit term I can come up. So I can be like, I'm the #1 best-selling depressive chill gaze artist.
Mixtapes and get some genre tags like post-ambient or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm the post-ambient artist, bro.
Oh, there you go.
That's right. Didn't you send something to Dan? That's why you're asking that?
Maybe.
He did send you something, Dan, but you know what? He's good. He's good for what he does. He just needs to start getting writing more original stuff. He does some good covers. I'd still say when you get around to it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely
plug here.
I'll listen to everything eventually. It just takes me like a million years. Say if you sent stuff, I mean, I can say this to anybody that's listening. If you've sent me stuff and I haven't responded, I apologize. It's just because I'm a horrible person and I'm bad at doing things. So, but yeah, so I mean, I want to get the Blackwing stuff done this year, and then we can kind of get into more serious Giles Corey recordings. So it should be fun.
Okay, a lot of people have been asking this question, just came up to get a little bit heavy. Could you ask Dan whether self-loathing influences them or the music they make, not trolling?
Okay. Does self-loathing influence like my life or the music that I make?
Yeah, both, I guess he's asking.
Yes, I would definitely say that. I would say that is a very
Good answer.
Yeah, that I would say that is a very directly dealt with theme. I think it's something that crops up in a lot of my stuff, and yeah, I think it's a little hard to avoid if you kind of grow up awkward or not socially proficient or whatever it is. So I think especially the newer Giles Corey songs kind of address that a little more directly. But yes. So yeah, the short answer is yes. The long answer is
another
yes.
good short answer.
Yes.
For a question for you to ask. Someone asked, what Ben and Jerry's ice cream goes best with Have a Nice Life?
I don't know. I like Chubby Hubby. That's a good one. And I am a husband.
All right.
And I'm a little tubbier than I was in my youth, so there you go.
Yeah, is
Hey,
there
there we
a
go.
Ben and Jerry's?
Chubby
I would
Puppy
love to.
everyone.
What would the Ben and Jerry's Have a Nice Life ice cream flavor be called?
That was
I don't know. It would
Just
be
where's
like-
the food? Is that-
It's dark. It's an empty container of ice cream.
I was gonna say it's like dark chocolate with a downward spiral of I don't know tears.
Or it could be
or
the eternal worm devours your ice cream, and there would be like
What
gummy
is
worms in
eternal
it.
worm?
That would
yeah,
be
you have
delicious.
to eat it all in one sitting. That is the gummy worms. That's gross. I don't like gummy candy. My wife.
I don't like gummy worms in ice cream. I think that's a weird texture mixture. On top of it not being as like the ice cream's overbearing to begin with.
Yeah,
So,
you got to get on those texture issues, bro. That's important. I don't
that
know.
is half of food right there, though.
Someone could come up with something better than I could. I'm sure.
Someone in the thread come up with a good flavor. Just post all of your flavor ideas in the thread, and we'll.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm sure
find out.
someone will be like, oh, it's Have a Nice Life.
Dark
so
chocolate
it's gotta
swirl
be-
with peanut butter or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, it just has to be like shit flavor because whatever.
Yeah.
There you go. I made the joke for you.
I wanted to ask on the Unnatural World, on the track Cropsy, two questions about that. I guess a lot of people that found the sample on that track kind of surfaced later, and I think a lot of people were wondering where the inspiration to use that came from and about that documentary.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty easy story. So, I knew about the Pennhurst stuff mostly because when Tim and I were originally working on album covers, I still have it. There's sort of like an alternate art approach we were going to take. There's this really cool photo of this kid kind of sitting Indian style at Pennhurst. It was taken from this book that Tim found on that stuff. And we didn't end up using it because we couldn't get it high res enough. We couldn't get the scan to really come out, and so it just wasn't suitable for printing or whatever. So it's kind of in the back of my head. And then I saw the Cropsy documentary, which I think you can stream on Netflix. It's called Cropsy, and kind of tries to tie together the Cropsy legend and the Pennhurst reality. So I watched that movie and I was like, oh, that's a good movie. And then I came over and I was like, I'm going to record some music now. And as usually happens, we kind of like, we open a new Logic file and sit down to work on music, and I've got to save it as something. So it's like whatever the first thing that comes to mind is, right? And some of the weirder song titles we just keep from that, right? So Dan and Tim Reunited by Fate, which is a song on the thing, was like, there's we were talking about video games. There's a video game called Rival Schools. I don't know if you ever, but it's like Rival Schools United by Fate. It was like a fighting game where you were like Japanese school kids, and it was on PlayStation or something. And
cool.
I remember like in the game we were talking about, I was like, oh, you remember that game? Like, oh, that was really weird. And I'm like, oh, we have to save this thing. What do you want to save it as? I don't know, Dan and Tim Reunited by Fate. All right, cool. We'll change that later to something cool.
I thought it was just a reference of you guys becoming successful as Have a Nice Life, but that's a much more interesting story.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things where like we hadn't hung out in a while, so it was sort of like, it was funny, haha, at the moment.
Yeah,
but that's the reference. And I was waiting for someone to get it, but I haven't seen anyone reference it, so I may have made this game up in my head. Maybe it doesn't even exist.
Wow,
false memory.
Yeah, so in any case. So that's the story behind that. It's pretty direct. And actually, the director of that documentary, when I put up the demo, he must have had like a Google alert for Cropsy or something. So he found the song and he sent me a really nice email and was like, "Oh, I really dig the song. It's cool." So he's a super great guy, and I think he's working on something new soon. So that you can keep an eye out for him. But yeah, that's the story. Pretty straightforward.
The other thing I wanted to ask about that real quick is the opening little like kind of bell sounding notes on Cropsy. Was that supposed to kind of recall the riff on Blood Hail? Because it sort of reminded me of that, or very similar to it, and I was wondering if there was some kind of connection there.
I think there's a connection in that we are uncreative hacks, so maybe that's the connection. It's a little similar for sure. I mean, we actually did. There was a B-side from Death Consciousness called Numbers, which we never finished and we never put out, but sort of had that line come back into the song as a horn line. We had Tim play saxophone and his brother played trombone. They're like both. We just every song sounds the same because we're idiots. That's what it usually comes down to.
All right, well, jumping off that from we're idiots, people want to know the idiot's advice for inspiring young musicians.
Okay, all right, aspiring young musicians. I don't really have any advice. I would just say that the less you care about what is going on at the moment, the better chance you have of sort of hitting your stride when everyone else is catching up to where you've been the whole time. So I feel like, in all things, luck plays has a huge part. I think we're totally lucky. We really benefited from this kind of resurgence of shoegazy, doomy stuff that's kind of happening right when Death Consciousness came out, but I didn't know any of that. I honestly thought that nobody liked Sisters of Mercy. I mean, I was such an idiot. Kind of looking back, I was like, no bands, take their inspiration from 80s goth bands. Like, which is...
like, that's almost still accurate. A lot of people, they go with that standard post-punk sound, but not necessarily into the goth realm. We've actually had someone on here talk about that before.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, but now looking back, like there were a lot of bands that sort of were doing similar stuff to us, but I just didn't know about any of them. And, we were just kind of, that record sounds like what it sounds like because that's all we could do. We didn't know how to record any better. We didn't, we didn't know what we were doing. We're just kind of doing it. And I think the more you can try to get into that state and just say, this is what I'm doing, and just kind of keep recording and keep putting stuff out, the better it's going to be. And I think that, you can't, if you're trying to do the thing that's happening, it's too late, right? Because by the time you get that momentum going, everyone else is off to something else. And it's just kind of a pointless pursuit. You got to just kind of build your own community as much as you can. And, just be honest about who you are and what you're doing, and people will connect to it. and just try not to suck. I don't know what
You
else.
try not to suck. That's the main lesson.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously we haven't gotten the hang of that, but we do our best. We try. That's all we can really do. Hey, so I think I got time for one more question, guys, and then I'm going to have to.
All right, someone wanted to know what the synths were on Unholy Life. What you were using for
That's the
instruments.
last question.
The synths. I don't know. I could tell you that it is a Logic preset that I probably put a whole bunch of distortion and reverb on because I am an untalented songwriter, and that's how I disguise our horrible parts. Beyond that, I couldn't even tell you. I know almost nothing about gear or the technical part of recording. I mean, I really just sit down at the computer, I plug in a keyboard or a guitar or whatever we're playing with, and plink out some parts, play around with presets, play around with effects and stuff until I say, oh, that sounds cool. And then it just kind of goes from there. I mean, I really know so little about the craft that I attempt to, take part in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
It sounds like what you did before, because I mean, there was a lot of people don't mention it anymore, but there was always a big backlash for Death Consciousness being GarageBand preset drums, like whatever pack it was.
Yeah, well, because they are, right? They are,
Yeah.
because that's what we had. That's all we had. I didn't know how to do anything else. So, for me, I like the way it sounds, and that's enough for me. It's funny because this is one of my friends who were talking about the record, and he was asking about how we recorded it, and he's like, oh, how do you get that? How do you get the reverb sound? And I was like, oh, it's just like Logic reverb or whatever. And he said, he's like, you put Logic reverb on your actual album that you're going to release? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, God, you're such an asshole, right? Because to him, he knows better. He knows better.
Yes,
he's like, dude,
he knows how to do better reverb.
Yeah, he's like, everybody that's ever recorded is going to hear that and know that's what it is. And I'm like, oh, I don't know that's what it is. I have no idea. As long as if it sounds good to you,
that's
then
what I figure as well.
You
I use
get
my music.
Yeah, I mean, you get the benefit to yourself. You get that personal release from it. Then, you do your best, and beyond that, if you want to spend more time on that, Godspeed. We need people that know how to do that stuff. But it's never been my focus, and it's not what gets me excited. So I don't focus in on that, and I accept that is a weakness in our music, and I get that, and I know that people that are aware of that stuff will really clue into that. But it's just not something that I particularly care about. So it is what it is. But hey, guys, I wanted to say thank you so much for asking me to do this, and
Thank you for coming on.
I really appreciate that. You guys and the people on 4chan and all this stuff really help us out and spread our music, and kind of I get that there are people on there that really kind of sing our praises and help us do the stuff we want to do, and that's really means a lot to us, so I appreciate it. And
we have close to 100 people listening this whole time, so that's pretty good.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody. I really appreciate it again. And I will.
Someone wants to know about merch real quick. Do you plan on just getting some new clothes, new shirts real quick?
Yeah, so there's going to be new Have a Nice Life shirts soonish. We haven't started printing them yet because we're finalizing the art. And then we're going to have No Fun shirts are going to be back in stock. We have those. I also have our own copies of the Have a Nice Life vinyl. I also have some of the Oxblood, whatever the hell it was, limited ones.
Limited edition things that I released.
So
I don't know what they are.
I'll put those up on Enemies List if someone was looking for those. But yeah, I got to run. But thanks guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Nice talking to you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, bye guys.
See you later.
Later.
Thanks.